Valentine's Day. I was about to surprise my girlfriend. Instead, I watched her show off an engagement ring to another man. What I did next, she never saw coming. And the revenge? It was absolutely perfect. I had known Laura for 2 years. We met during my last year of undergrad, right before she left for a graduate program a few hours away. The distance wasn't ideal, but it was manageable. We saw each other most weekends. Sometimes she came to me, sometimes I drove to her parents' place where she stayed when she wasn't on campus. It became routine, familiar, comfortable. The weekend before Valentine's Day had been normal in the best way. Dinner, a movie, nothing heavy, nothing unresolved. When I left that Sunday night, she hugged me longer than usual, told me to text when I got home, and reminded me she'd be with her parents the following weekend. I remember thinking it was a good moment, one of those quiet checkpoints where you assume things are steady. That week, I decided to surprise her. I didn't tell her I was coming. I bought flowers on the drive over. Nothing extravagant, just something simple, something that said I showed up. Her parents' house was already lit when I pulled into the street, more cars than usual. I noticed that before anything else. I parked a little farther down, figuring there was some family thing going on. I didn't think much of it. As I walked up the driveway, I slowed down near the front window. The curtains were open just enough to see inside. I wasn't trying to spy, I just happened to look. Laura was standing in the living room, near the center. Her parents were there, a few relatives I recognized, and next to her was a man I had never seen before. His hand was on her back. Her body leaned slightly toward his. Someone said something I couldn't hear, and Laura laughed. Then she lifted her left hand. There was a ring. It took a moment for my brain to register what I was looking at. I remember thinking it must be a joke, or a prop, or something temporary. But then her mother stepped forward and hugged her. Her father clapped the man on the shoulder. The room reacted the way people react when something has just been announced. That was when I understood who he was. Her fiancé. I stood there holding flowers I suddenly felt embarrassed to be holding. I didn't feel angry yet. Mostly I felt still. My chest felt tight, but my hands didn't shake. I remember being aware of my breathing, like I had to remind myself to keep doing it. I had been with her the week before, in that same living room, sitting on the same couch. She had kissed me goodbye at that door. I didn't knock. I didn't go inside. I didn't send a text. I stepped back, walked to my car, and sat there for a few minutes with the engine off. I left without anyone knowing I had been there. Later that night, she texted me like nothing had happened, asked how my day was, sent a heart. I replied the same way I always did, short, normal. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I didn't accuse her of anything. Over the next few days, I paid attention. I looked at dates. I checked posts. I reread messages I already had. I didn't have to search hard. The overlap was obvious. The engagement announcement had gone up 2 days after I left her parents' house the previous weekend. I didn't rush. I didn't want to. About a week later, I put everything together. Screenshots, photos, messages with timestamps. Nothing dramatic, just facts arranged in order. I found the fiancé's profile. His name was Daniel. I wrote a short message. I didn't explain myself beyond what was necessary. I sent it. I didn't wait by the phone. I went about my day. That evening, Laura called me, then called again, then texted. Her messages shifted quickly, from confusion to anger to explanations I didn't respond to. I didn't block her right away. I just didn't engage. The engagement announcement disappeared. Her profile went private. Her parents stopped liking posts they had already liked. I never spoke to Daniel directly after that. He didn't ask questions. He didn't argue. He didn't need to. Laura sent one final message a few days later. It was long. It covered a lot of ground. I read it once and didn't reply. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel empty either. Mostly, I felt finished. I never gave her the Valentine's Day surprise I planned. I didn't need to. The truth did what it does, on its own. My name is Ethan. I was 26 when this happened. Laura and I had been together just over 2 years. We met during my last year of school, at a time when neither of us was really looking for anything serious. She had already accepted a position in another city, a few hours away. We both knew the distance was coming before we ever put a label on what we were doing. When it arrived, it didn't change much. We adjusted without talking about it too much. Most weekends, we saw each other. Sometimes I drove to her parents' house, where she stayed when she wasn't near work. Other times, she came to my place. The drive became routine, the kind you stop thinking about after a while. Music on, coffee in the cup holder, same exits, same gas station halfway there. Our families knew about us. Her parents knew me well enough that I didn't feel like a guest anymore. I helped clear dishes. I took out the trash without being asked. Her mother asked about my job. Her father talked to me about sports I didn't follow closely, but listened to anyway. It felt established. Not exciting in a flashy way, but steady. The weekend before Valentine's Day was exactly that. Steady. I arrived Friday evening after work. She was already home, wearing an old sweatshirt of mine she'd kept. We ordered food from the same place we always did, sat on the couch, talked about small things, work complaints, a show she'd started watching. Nothing heavy, nothing unresolved. Saturday was uneventful. Errands, a short walk around the neighborhood, dinner with her parents. At one point, her mother asked if we'd figured out our plans for the spring yet. Laura answered without looking at me, but the answer included me. It didn't register as anything unusual at the time. Sunday morning, we had coffee at the kitchen table, sunlight through the window, her father reading the paper, her mother moving around the kitchen. Laura sat close enough that our knees touched. When it was time for me to leave, she walked me to the door. She hugged me, the kind of hug that doesn't feel rushed. She told me to text when I got home, reminded me she'd be staying with her parents the next weekend, said we'd figure out Valentine's Day soon. Nothing about that moment felt unfinished. Looking back, that weekend hurts the most because nothing felt wrong. During the week, I thought about Valentine's Day more than I usually would have. We'd never made a big deal out of it before. It was always awkward with the distance. This time, I decided I'd just show up. No announcement, no build-up, just presence. I bought a small gift a few days earlier, something simple, something I knew she'd like. I left it in my car so I wouldn't forget it. On Valentine's Day, I finished work earlier than usual. I didn't tell her. I didn't want to ruin the surprise. I stopped at a grocery store near her parents' house and bought flowers. I remember standing there longer than necessary, deciding which ones looked right. I paid, carried them out, and set them carefully on the passenger seat. As I drove the last few blocks, I pictured her answering the door, the pause, the smile, the quick step forward. I pictured handing her the flowers, maybe laughing at how unnecessary the secrecy had been. I didn't text her to say I was close. I had absolutely no idea what was waiting for me. The street was quiet when I turned onto it, cold in that way where the air feels sharp when you breathe in. Her parents' house was easy to spot from a distance. Every light was on, not just inside, outside too. The porch light, the lamp near the garage, it looked occupied in a way that stood out. There were more cars in the driveway than usual. I noticed that before I parked. A couple I didn't recognize. One parked partly on the curb. I remember slowing down, scanning license plates without knowing why. I told myself it was probably extended family, someone's birthday, a late holiday gathering. I parked a little farther down the street and walked back with the flowers in my hand. The stems were cold against my palm. As I got closer to the house, I could hear voices through the walls, laughter, the kind that comes from a group, not just one or two people. Picture this. I'm standing on the front lawn, just a few steps from the walkway. The curtains in the living room aren't fully closed. They're drawn, but unevenly, leaving a narrow gap. I wasn't trying to look inside. I didn't stop because I was suspicious. I stopped because I recognized her voice. The living room was full. Her parents, a couple of relatives I recognized from past holidays, people sitting, people standing, someone holding a drink. The room looked warm, bright, familiar. Laura was standing near the center of it. She was facing slightly toward the couch, her body turned at an angle I'd seen 100 times before. She was smiling, not politely, not casually, fully, the kind of smile that lifts her cheeks and changes her voice. Then I saw her lift her hand. At first, I didn't understand why everyone's attention shifted, why the room seemed to pause around her. Her hand was raised slightly, fingers relaxed. It took a second longer for my eyes to focus on what was catching the light. There was a ring. Gold. Simple. Clean. Sitting on her left hand. Her mother clapped first. I could see it clearly. Her father stood up. Someone else said something I couldn't hear, and the room reacted all at once. Smiles widened. People leaned in. Laura laughed and turned slightly. That was when I saw him. He was standing next to her, close enough that their sides touched. His arm was already around her waist like it belonged there. He leaned in toward her ear and said something. She tilted her head toward him without thinking. Her fiancé. The words settled slowly. Not all at once. It didn't hit like a wave. It arrived piece by piece, each part heavier than the last. I stopped breathing for a moment. Not intentionally. My body just didn't remember to do it. My heart started pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. My hands began to shake, and I had to grip the flowers tighter so they wouldn't slip. I remember thinking that I should move, that standing there didn't make sense, that I should knock or step back or do anything other than stand frozen on the lawn. But I didn't. I was standing there, holding Valentine's Day flowers, watching my girlfriend celebrate her engagement. I had been in that room the week before, sitting on that couch, drinking coffee at that table. I had kissed her goodbye at that door. She had said she loved me. She had told me to drive safe. She had talked about plans that included me without hesitation. My brain tried to reorder what I was seeing, tried to place it somewhere that made sense, a misunderstanding, a performance, something temporary, but nothing fit. The reactions were too natural. The way her parents looked at him was too familiar. The way she leaned into his arm wasn't rehearsed. It was practiced. I felt embarrassed standing there with the flowers, not angry yet, just small, like I had walked into the wrong version of my own life. I didn't knock. I didn't confront them. I didn't even step onto the walkway. Because in that moment, standing in the cold, watching the room I thought I belonged to celebrate something I had never been told about, I decided on revenge. I stepped back from the window slowly, careful not to make any sound. I walked the same path back to the street, the flowers still in my hand, my grip tighter than it needed to be. I didn't look back at the house. I didn't want the image to change. I wanted it to stay exactly as it was, because I knew if I tried to reinterpret it later, I would doubt myself. I got into my car and shut the door. I sat there without starting the engine. The interior light came on for a moment and then went dark. I remember staring at the dashboard, watching my breath fog slightly in the air. I didn't cry. That surprised me at the time. I always assumed something like that would break you open immediately. Instead, there was nothing. No panic, no anger. Just a heavy stillness, like my body had decided to shut everything else down. After a few minutes, I started the car and drove away. I don't remember the drive home. I know I took the highway. I know I stopped at one red light longer than necessary because someone honked, but most of it feels like missing time. I was present enough to stay on the road, not present enough to feel much of anything. Later that night, my phone lit up. It was Laura. She asked how my day was. Nothing unusual about the message. The same opening she always used. A few minutes later, another message followed. She said she missed me. She sent a heart. I stared at the screen longer than I needed to. My hands felt steady now. My thoughts felt slow, but clear. I typed back something short, neutral, asked about her day. She replied quickly, told me she'd been busy with family stuff, said she wished I were there, told me she loved me. She had no idea I already knew. Over the next few days, nothing changed on the surface. We texted the way we always had. She called once, talked about work, complained about traffic, mentioned being tired. I listened. I responded. I didn't ask questions that would give anything away. At night, I replayed the scene at the window in my head. Not obsessively, just carefully. I wanted to remember it exactly as it happened. The placement of people, the way her hand moved, the way the ring caught the light. I wasn't looking for pain. I was looking for certainty. The shock faded quicker than I expected. In its place came something steadier. Not anger, not sadness, clarity. I stopped wondering if I was mistaken. I stopped wondering if there was an explanation that would make it okay. The pieces fit too cleanly. The timing made too much sense. I realized I didn't need answers from her. I didn't need to confront her to understand what had happened. And then I realized I didn't need to rush this. There was no deadline, no rule that said I had to react immediately. Whatever I did next didn't need to be loud. It didn't need to be emotional. It just needed to be deliberate. So I stayed quiet. I paid attention. I let her believe everything was still exactly where she had left it. Once I stopped reacting, I started paying attention. I didn't do it all at once. I didn't sit down that night and try to piece everything together. I let the days pass normally. I went to work, I answered messages, I slept when I could. And in the quiet moments, when there was nothing else demanding my focus, I filled in gaps. I already knew what I'd seen. I didn't need confirmation of that. What I needed was context. I started with what was public. Laura had always been careful online, but not private. Her accounts were still open. Her photos were still there. I scrolled slowly, not looking for anything dramatic, just dates, captions, familiar faces appearing more often than they used to. It didn't take long to find him. Daniel wasn't hard to identify once I knew to look for him. He appeared in the background of photos from places Laura had told me she'd visited alone. A shoulder here, a reflection there, a comment that lingered just a little too comfortably. His profile told the rest of the story without saying much. He lived nearby, worked a steady job. His photos with Laura went back months, far enough that there was no clean break between us, just overlap. I checked the engagement announcement, 2 days after I'd left her parents' house the previous weekend, the same house I'd been sitting in days earlier talking about plans that assumed time. I didn't feel a rush of anger when I saw that. Mostly I felt settled, the kind of calm that comes when the last uncertainty drops away. I began organizing what I already had, messages between me and Laura, photos from our last weekend together, timestamps that required no explanation, nothing invasive, nothing exaggerated, just things that already existed, placed next to each other in the order they happened. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to tell the truth, strategically. That distinction mattered to me. I wasn't interested in embarrassing her or making a scene. I didn't want to be part of a confrontation where emotions did all the talking. I wanted the facts to speak without interference. As I worked through it, I noticed how careful she'd been, How easily she'd moved between versions of her life, different stories told to different people, different futures running parallel without touching. The ring mattered, the timing mattered, and I knew exactly who needed to see the truth. I didn't act on it right away. I waited until I felt nothing about it. No urgency, no hesitation. When the moment came, it didn't feel dramatic. It felt administrative. And once everything was ready, I closed my laptop and went to bed. I waited until a night when nothing else was pulling at my attention. No work deadlines, no plans. Just a quiet evening where I knew I wouldn't rush. I opened my laptop and laid everything out again, even though I already knew what was there. Screenshots of messages between Laura and me from the week before Valentine's Day. Photos from that weekend. Nothing intimate, nothing dramatic. Just us together. Her on my couch. Her shoes by my door. A receipt time-stamped the morning I drove her back to her parents' house. I checked the dates one more time. Not because I doubted them, but because I wanted to be precise. I didn't add commentary. I didn't highlight anything. I let the sequence speak for itself. Then I opened Daniel's profile. I had already drafted the message earlier in my head. When I typed it out, it was shorter than I expected. I don't know you, but you deserve to know who you're marrying. I attached the screenshots and sent it. There was no immediate response. I closed the laptop and stood up, walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water. When I came back, the screen lit up. Daniel replied with a question, just one, asking who I was. I answered with my name and nothing else. A few minutes passed, then another message came in, longer this time, confused, defensive. He said Laura had told him they'd only started seeing each other recently, that there must be a mistake. I didn't argue. I sent one more screenshot. A message from Laura to me, sent while she was already wearing his ring. There was a pause. Then his tone changed. Shorter messages, sharper. He asked for clarification I didn't need to give. He said he was calling her. He said this didn't make sense. I stopped responding. The last message I received from him was a single word, not directed at me, just sent into the space between messages, like he didn't know where else to put it. After that, nothing. My phone started ringing about 10 minutes later. Laura. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. Texts followed, one after another. She asked what was going on. She asked if I'd talked to someone. She asked why Daniel wasn't answering her calls. I didn't respond. Her messages shifted quickly. It's not what it looks like. We were on a break. I can explain. I read them without reacting. They felt familiar, even though I'd never heard them from her before. The explanations arrived too fast, stacked on top of each other, none of them fully formed. That's when she made a huge mistake. She left a voicemail. In it, she said my name. She acknowledged the overlap without meaning to. She talked around the truth instead of denying it. She sounded panicked, not angry, not apologetic, just caught. I saved the voicemail and didn't listen to it again. By the next morning, the engagement announcement was gone. The photos disappeared first, then the captions, then her profile went private. Her parents' accounts followed soon after. Comments vanished, likes were removed. It was as if someone had gone through carefully and erased a week from existence. Laura's calls slowed, then stopped. One final text came in that evening. It was longer than the others. It tried to explain everything at once. I didn't open it right away. I didn't need to. The truth had already reached the people it needed to reach. I didn't hear anything directly about the engagement at first, not officially. Information came indirectly, the way it usually does when people stop talking but things still move. A few days passed, then a week. I noticed Daniel had removed every photo that included Laura. His profile went quiet. No vague posts, no explanations, just absence. A mutual acquaintance of hers mentioned casually that the engagement was off. No details, no story attached to it, just a fact delivered without emotion. Later, I heard the ring had been returned. Laura didn't disappear right away. She tried to reach me in waves. At first, the messages were apologetic. She said she was sorry for how things happened, sorry for how I found out, sorry for the timing. She said she'd never meant to hurt anyone. When I didn't respond, the tone shifted. She said I had misunderstood things, that it was complicated, that I didn't know the full picture. She suggested I had overstepped by involving someone else. She said I should have come to her first. When that didn't work either, the messages turned sharp. She accused me of ruining her life, of acting out of spite, of humiliating her in front of her family. She said I had no right. The same woman who lied to two men was suddenly furious I told the truth. I didn't reply to any of it. Not because I was trying to punish her, but because there was nothing left to say. Anything I could have written would have pulled me back into a conversation I didn't want anymore. It took longer than I expected for my own feelings to settle. There was no moment of triumph, no sense of victory. The first few days after everything came apart felt strangely empty, like a noise had stopped and my body hadn't adjusted yet. Then, gradually, the quiet became easier to sit with. I didn't have to replay conversations anymore. I didn't have to wonder what I'd missed or whether I'd imagined things. The questions that had followed me for months without me realizing it simply stopped showing up. I never confronted her in person. I never heard her explain herself face to face. I didn't need to. What I'd seen through that window was enough. Everything after that only confirmed it. Closure didn't arrive all at once. It came in small, unremarkable ways, sleeping through the night, going a full day without thinking about it, realizing I could remember the relationship without feeling pulled back into it. Eventually, Laura stopped trying to contact me. Her number stayed in my phone longer than it needed to, but it stopped lighting up. When I finally deleted it, it felt administrative, not emotional. I didn't walk away feeling satisfied. I walked away feeling finished. There was no confrontation, no dramatic ending, just a sequence of events that reached their natural conclusion once the truth was placed where it belonged. And after that, there was nothing left to do but move forward. I've been asked since then if it was worth it. I didn't have an answer right away. At the time, I wasn't thinking in those terms. I wasn't weighing outcomes or imagining how things would look later. I was just responding to what I saw, in the only way that felt clean to me. With some distance, the answer became clearer. Yes, it was worth it. Not because it hurt her, not because it ended an engagement, and not because it proved anything about me. It was worth it because it ended the confusion. It replaced guessing with certainty. It stopped a situation that depended entirely on silence to keep going. I didn't uncover anything hidden. I didn't dig for secrets. I didn't exaggerate or frame the story to my advantage. I placed existing facts in front of the one person who had the most at stake in not knowing them. Everything else unfolded on its own. I didn't gain anything tangible from it. No apology that mattered. No acknowledgement that changed how things ended. What I got was quieter than that. I got the ability to move on without carrying unanswered questions. I got an ending that didn't require me to rewrite my own memory to make sense of it. I never gave her the Valentine's Day surprise I planned, but I did give her something else: consequences. If you've ever found out someone was living a double life or handled something like that in your own way, you can share it in the comments. Before you go, if this story held your attention, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you might think, and it's how stories like this keep finding their way to people who recognize them. And if you feel like sharing, let me know where you're watching from. I read more of those comments than you'd expect.